My name is Ethan Carter, and 4 years ago I met Olivia Hayes. Since then, almost every plan I made included her. Every promotion I chased, every dollar I saved, and every dream I built seemed connected to the future I imagined with her. I truly believed she was the woman I would marry. One evening, we sat together in our favorite cafe. Olivia smiled and said, "You're staring again." I laughed. "Can you blame me?" "Probably. I still can't believe you're with me." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're ridiculous." "Maybe, but I'm happy." For a moment, I felt like the luckiest man alive. A few days later, I met my brother Mason for lunch. He watched me talk about Olivia for nearly 10 minutes before interrupting. "Ethan, can I ask something?" "Sure. Are you absolutely certain about her?" I frowned. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind I'm serious about." I shook my head. "Yes, I'm certain." Mason leaned back. "I don't know." "You don't know what?" "Something feels off." I laughed. "You're overthinking." "Maybe." "You definitely are." He sighed. "I hope you're right." I ignored the warning. That was easy because I loved Olivia more than I trusted my own doubts. That weekend, I visited her apartment. She opened the door with a smile. Perfect timing. "Missed me?" "A little." "A little?" She laughed. "Fine. A lot." Pulled her into a hug. For a while, everything felt normal. Then her phone buzzed. She checked the screen and immediately locked it. "Who was that?" I asked. "No one." That sounded convincing. She rolled her eyes. "It was just a message." "From who?" "Why are you interrogating me?" I raised both hands. "I'm not." Her expression softened. "Sorry. Long day." "It's okay." Still, something about her reaction stayed with me. Later that night, we talked about the future. I said, "Have you thought about where we'd live?" She smiled. "Somewhere nice." "That's a detailed plan." "You know what I mean." I grinned. "I've actually been looking at houses." Her smile faded briefly. "Houses?" "Just looking." "Ethan, that's moving fast. We've been together 4 years." "I know." The conversation ended there. I told myself she was simply nervous. The following week, she canceled dinner twice. The first time, she claimed she was helping a friend. The second time, she said she felt tired. When I offered to bring food to her apartment, she immediately refused. That felt strange. A few nights later, I called her. She answered after several rings. "Hey, you sound distracted." "I'm busy." "Doing what?" "Just stuff." I smiled. "Very specific." "Ethan." "What?" "Stop worrying so much." I laughed softly. "I can't help it." After we hung up, I stared at my phone. For the first time, I wondered whether Mason had noticed something I missed. The thought bothered me. The next afternoon, Mason stopped by my place. He noticed my expression immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Liar." I sat down. "Olivia's been acting weird." His face tightened. "How weird?" I explained everything. The canceled plans, the hidden messages, the strange reactions. When I finished, Mason was quiet. Finally, he said, "Trust your instincts." I shook my head. "No." "What do you mean no?" "Love means trust. Love also means honesty. Olivia is honest." "How do you know?" The question annoyed me. "Because I know her." Mason looked unconvinced. Before leaving, he said, "Just be careful." That night, Olivia came over. We ordered takeout and watched a movie. Halfway through, she rested her head on my shoulder. I smiled. "This is nice." "Yeah. I love you." There was a short pause. Then she said, "I love you too." The hesitation was small. So small that most people would have ignored it. I ignored it too. At least I tried. The truth was simple. I loved her so completely that I explained away every concern. When friends questioned her behavior, I defended her. When plans changed suddenly, I accepted excuses. Whenever uncertainty appeared, I buried it beneath hope. I believed trust required silence, patience, and faith. Looking back, that belief blinded me completely back then too. Around midnight, Olivia said she needed to make a call. No problem. She stepped onto my balcony and closed the door behind her. A few minutes passed. Then curiosity got the better of me. I walked toward the balcony. I wasn't trying to spy. I simply wanted to ask whether she wanted coffee. Before I opened the door, I heard her voice. Calm, confident, almost amused. "Don't worry," she said. A second later, she laughed quietly. Then I heard the words that made my blood run cold. "Don't worry. Ethan still doesn't know anything." My heart froze. I couldn't forget what I had heard the night before. "Don't worry. Ethan still doesn't know anything." Those words followed me everywhere. At work. In my car. Even when I tried to sleep. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. Olivia loved me. At least that was what I wanted to believe. That afternoon, I met her for lunch. She smiled as she sat across from me. "Hey, you look tired," she said. "I didn't sleep much. Work stress. Something like that." She reached for my hand. "You worry too much." Normally, that touch would calm me. This time, it felt different. Her phone vibrated. She immediately turned the screen away from me. "Who was that?" I asked. "No one important." "Then why hide it?" She laughed. "Since when are you so curious?" "I'm just asking. And I'm just saying it's nothing." A few minutes later, her phone vibrated again. This time, she didn't even look at me before silencing it. A strange feeling settled in my chest. Before leaving, she kissed my cheek. "I'll call you tonight. Promise." "Of course." Yet something in her eyes felt distant. That evening, she canceled our dinner plans. Her text was short. Asterisk something came up. "Sorry." Asterisk. I stared at the message. For years together, she used to explain everything. Now I was lucky if I got a sentence. The next day, I stopped by her apartment. Her older sister Sarah opened the door. "Oh," she said. "Ethan." "Hi. Is Olivia home?" "No. She left earlier." "Did she say where she was going?" Sarah hesitated. "Not really." The hesitation caught my attention. "Is everything okay?" "Why wouldn't it be? You seem nervous." She forced a smile. "I'm fine." Before I could say more, Olivia walked in. "Ethan," she said. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to surprise you." Sarah looked away immediately. The room suddenly felt uncomfortable. Olivia wrapped her arms around me. "See? Nothing suspicious." I laughed weakly. Nobody said there was. But Sarah still couldn't meet my eyes. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Over the next week, little things started adding up. More canceled plans. More hidden messages. More unexplained absences. One night, I called her. She answered after several rings. "Hey, you sound out of breath." "I was walking." "At 10 at night? Can't a girl take a walk?" "Olivia, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" "I feel like you're pulling away." Silence. Then she sighed. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" "Yes." "Then why do I feel like I barely know what's happening in your life anymore?" "Because you're overthinking." Her answer didn't comfort me. It only made me feel worse. 3 days later, everything changed. Olivia canceled another date. "I have to help a friend," she texted. I stared at the screen. Then I made a decision I never thought I would make. I followed her. The entire drive, I hated myself. Trust was supposed to be the foundation of love. So why was I doing this? Because deep down, I was terrified of what I might find. I watched her car stop outside an expensive downtown restaurant. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. "Please," I whispered. "Give me a reason to feel stupid." She stepped out of her car. For a moment, nothing happened. Then another man approached her. Tall, confident, expensively dressed. My stomach dropped. The man smiled. Olivia smiled back. Not the polite smile she gave strangers. Not even the smile she gave friends. This smile was different. Warmer. More intimate. Then she walked into his arms. I felt my entire world tilt. "No," I whispered. The embrace lasted only seconds. To me, it felt endless. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I watched them laugh together, watched him brush a strand of hair from her face, watched her allow it. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. I wanted to walk over. I wanted answers. Instead, I stayed hidden. A valet greeted the man. "Good evening, Mr. Reed." Reed. The name sounded familiar. Then I remembered. Jason Reed, the successful entrepreneur everyone seemed to admire. I sat there long after they entered the restaurant. My mind refused to accept what my eyes had seen. Maybe they were friends. Maybe business partners. Maybe relatives. I spent hours creating explanations. Every one of them felt weaker than the last. Eventually, they came back outside. I remained hidden across the street. They stood near the entrance talking quietly. Then I heard Olivia speak. Her voice was soft, almost affectionate. She looked directly into Jason's eyes and smiled. "Soon I won't have to pretend anymore." My heart froze. Everything suddenly felt terrifyingly real. I barely slept after what I saw outside the restaurant. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Olivia smiling at Jason Reed. Every time I tried to explain it away, I heard her words again. "Soon I won't have to pretend anymore." The next evening, I asked her to come to my apartment. When she arrived, she smiled. "Hey, you sounded serious on the phone." I looked at her quietly. Her smile slowly faded. "Ethan, we need to talk." "About what?" I took a deep breath. "About Jason Reed." The color drained from her face. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she sat down. "You followed me. Answer the question." Her eyes lowered. My stomach twisted. "Olivia," she exhaled slowly. "How much did you see?" That answer alone shattered something inside me. "So it's true." She rubbed her forehead. "Ethan, how long?" She remained silent. "How long?" I repeated. "Almost a year." The room felt suddenly smaller. "A year." I stared at her. "A year." "I'm sorry." "Sorry?" I laughed bitterly. "You've been seeing another man for a year and all you have is sorry?" "I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" Tears appeared in her eyes. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "That's not an answer." She looked away. I felt anger mixing with heartbreak. "Did everyone know?" "No." "Did Sarah know?" Silence. I clenched my jaw. "She knew. She didn't want to get involved." I shook my head. "I can't believe this." Neither could I. For years. For years of memories. For years of plans. For years of believing I knew the woman sitting in front of me. Apparently, I didn't. "Why?" I asked quietly. She swallowed. "It wasn't simple." "Make it simple." Another painful silence followed. Then she finally spoke. "You were safe." The words confused me. "What?" "You were safe." I stared at her. "What does that even mean?" "It means I always knew what to expect from you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "And that's bad." "No." "Then why are we having this conversation?" She looked frustrated. "Ethan, you don't understand." "Help me understand." She hesitated. Then she said the words that destroyed me. "Jason made me feel alive." I felt like someone had punched me. "What about me?" "You were dependable." I laughed again. This time there was no humor in it. "Dependable." "You were kind." "Dependable and kind." "Ethan, keep going." She looked miserable. "You always loved me." The sentence felt strange. As if loving her had somehow become a flaw. "I thought that was the point." "I know." "No. Apparently I don't know anything." She wiped away a tear. I wanted to comfort her. The fact that I still wanted to comfort her made me hate myself. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" "I didn't know how." "So you were just going to keep lying?" "No." "When were you going to stop?" She didn't answer. I already knew why. Because she didn't have one. Then another thought hit me. A horrible thought. Has he been paying for things? Her eyes widened. That was all the answer I needed. "Oh my God. It's not what you think." "Then tell me." "He helped me sometimes." "With what?" Rent. I stared at her. She couldn't even look at me. What else? Some bills. What else? She remained silent. My heart sank further. How much? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He wanted to help. I shook my head. No. I laughed bitterly again. He wasn't helping. What do you mean? He was buying a place in your life. The truth hung heavily between us. I suddenly remembered all the expensive things she had recently owned. The designer handbag, the jewelry, the weekend trips. I had believed every excuse. I had wanted to believe. Now every memory felt poisoned. Finally, I asked the question I feared most. Did you ever love me? The room became completely silent. She opened her mouth, then closed it. A few seconds passed. That hesitation destroyed me more than everything else combined. More than Jason. More than the lies. More than the betrayal. Because for one terrible moment, she genuinely didn't know the answer. My chest tightened. I looked away. Wow. Ethan. No. Tears burned my eyes. Don't. I did love you. I laughed painfully. You had to think about it. Her silence confirmed everything. I stood up. I think you should leave. Fresh tears rolled down her face. Please. Leave. I never wanted this. But you chose it. She stood slowly. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something. Then she grabbed her purse. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, the door closed, and she was gone. Just like that. 4 years ended with a click of a lock. I sank onto the couch. The apartment felt empty. The future felt empty. Everything felt empty. For a long time, I simply sat there. Then I walked to my bedroom. My hands were shaking. I opened the top drawer of my dresser. Inside was a small black box. The engagement ring. I picked it up carefully. Weeks earlier, I had imagined slipping it onto her finger. I had imagined her smile. I had imagined our wedding. I had imagined our future. Now I understood something painful. The future I loved had never existed. I opened the box and stared at the ring. A single tear landed on the silver band. Then another, and another. As I sat alone in the darkness, holding the ring I almost gave her, the truth finally broke me. I wasn't grieving the woman I had lost. I was grieving the woman I thought she was. And the worst part was realizing she had never truly been mine to lose. The weeks after Olivia left felt endless. I stopped answering calls. I ignored messages. I went to work, came home, and stared at walls. Every morning I told myself I was getting better. Every night I knew I was lying. One afternoon my phone rang again. It was Mason. I almost ignored it. Instead I answered. You're alive. Barely. That's not funny. I wasn't joking. He sighed. How long are you going to do this? Do what? Hide. I'm not hiding. Then why haven't I seen you in 3 weeks? I didn't answer. Exactly, he said. What do you want, Mason? I want my brother back. I don't know where he is. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, she wasn't worth destroying yourself over. Easy for you to say. No, it isn't. I rubbed my eyes. I'm tired. Then stop feeding the pain. What does that even mean? It means stop checking her social media every hour. My silence answered him. I knew it. I'm just trying to understand. No, you're torturing yourself. After the call ended, I opened Olivia's profile again. Another photo, another smile, another reminder that I wasn't part of her life anymore. The next month got worse. My work suffered. I missed deadlines. I lost focus during meetings. Eventually, my manager called me into his office. Ethan, sit down. I already knew what was coming. I've been trying. I know. I'm dealing with personal issues. I know that too. I looked at him. He folded his hands. The promotion went to someone else. The words hit harder than I expected. Someone else. You weren't ready. I looked away. Months of effort had disappeared. Not because I wasn't capable. Because I couldn't function. I understand. I'm sorry. I nodded. But I didn't feel understanding. I felt empty. That evening I visited my mother. The moment she opened the door, she hugged me. You look exhausted. I feel worse. She guided me inside. You haven't been eating properly. I'm fine. No, you're not. I sat across from her. For a while she simply listened. Then she asked, do you miss Olivia or do you miss the future you imagined with her? The question surprised me. I don't know. I think you do. What do you mean? You loved the life you planned together. I stared at my coffee. Maybe. She reached across the table. You were somebody before her. It doesn't feel that way. That's because you're hurting. What if I never get over it? You will. How can you be so sure? She smiled sadly. Because heartbreak feels permanent while you're inside it. I wanted to believe her. I just couldn't. A few days later, I was walking through a small bookstore downtown when I heard a familiar voice. Ethan? I looked up. For a second, I didn't recognize her. Then I smiled. Grace. Grace Parker laughed. Wow, I haven't seen you in years. Since high school. Pretty much. We talked for a few minutes. Then she looked at me carefully. You look miserable. I laughed weakly. Nice to see you too. I'm serious. It's been a rough few months. She raised an eyebrow. Olivia. I blinked. How did you know? Because half the town knows. I groaned. Great. She folded her arms. So what are you doing about it? Trying to survive. That's not a plan. It's the best I've got. She studied me for a moment. Then she said something nobody else had said. Who are you without her? The question caught me off guard. What? Who are you without Olivia? I don't understand. Sure you do. I looked away. No. Then answer. Couldn't. That scared me. Grace noticed immediately. That's the problem. What is? You built your whole identity around one person. That's not true. Really? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She nodded. Exactly. The truth hurt because it was true. For 4 years, almost every major decision I made revolved around Olivia. Her goals, her dreams, her happiness. Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking what I wanted. Grace sat beside me. You know what's strange? What? You talk about losing her like you lost yourself. Maybe I did. No. I looked at her. She shook her head. You handed yourself away. The words stayed with me. For days. Maybe even weeks. One night, I found myself staring at Olivia's profile again. Another picture. Another reminder. Another wound. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I remembered Grace's question. Who are you without her? For the first time, I didn't think about Olivia. I thought about myself. The answer wasn't clear yet. But maybe that was okay. Slowly, I opened the settings. Then I blocked her account. My heart raced. Felt terrifying. It also felt necessary. I put my phone down and took a deep breath. Maybe losing Olivia wasn't the end of my life. Maybe it was the end of a version of me that had forgotten who he was. For the first time in months, that possibility felt real. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I decided to start rebuilding.
Several months passed after I blocked Olivia. The first few weeks were difficult. The next few became manageable. Eventually, I noticed something surprising. I wasn't thinking about her every minute anymore. One morning, I sat across from Daniel Brooks in a small office downtown. He reviewed my notes before looking up. So, what's stopping you? I frowned. From what? Starting your own consulting business. Laughed. 100 things. Name 3. I don't have enough clients. That's 1. I don't have enough money. That's 2. I might fail, Daniel. Smiled. That's the real one. I leaned. Back, what if I'm not ready? No entrepreneur ever feels ready. Easy for you to say. I said the same thing 20 years ago. I looked at him. Seriously? Word for word. That surprised me. Daniel pointed at my notebook. You know your industry. Maybe. You have experience. Some. You have contacts. A few. He shook his head. You keep talking yourself out of opportunities. I sighed. What if this doesn't work? What if it does? That question stayed with me long after the meeting ended. 3 weeks later, I officially launched my consulting company. The moment I submitted the paperwork, my hands shook, not from fear, from excitement. For the first time in years, I was building something for myself, not for Olivia, not for anyone else. For me. That evening I met Grace for coffee. She smiled when she saw me. You look different. Good. Different or bad different? Confident different. I laughed. I'll take that. She pointed at me. See? That right there. What? You smile more now, do I? Definitely. I sat down. Maybe life isn't completely terrible anymore. Progress. I told her about the company. When I finished, she grinned. I'm proud of you. The words caught me off guard. Proud? Why are you acting surprised? I don't know, she shrugged. You worked hard. There. Still a long way to go. There always is. I looked at her. You make everything sound simple, because some things are simple, such as, you got hurt. I nodded. You've survived. Another nod. Now you're moving forward. I smiled. When you say it like that, it sounds easy. It isn't easy. Then why say it that way? Because difficult things don't have to be complicated. I laughed. You always talk like that? Only when people need to hear it. Over the following months, Grace became one of the most important people in my life, not because she tried to fix me, because she refused to let me lie to myself. Whenever I doubted my progress, she challenged me. Whenever I made excuses, she called them excuses. Strangely, I appreciated it. One afternoon, Mason called me. You heard about Olivia? My stomach tightened slightly. What happened? Apparently, she doesn't talk to most of her old friends anymore. I remained quiet. That's all? No, he lowered his voice. I heard Jason has a temper. What kind of temper? The kind people whisper about. I thought about that after the call ended, not because I enjoyed hearing bad news, because it reminded me of something important. The relationship I once envied wasn't as perfect as it looked. A week later, I accidentally ran into Sarah at a grocery store. She seemed surprised to see me. Ethan. Hi, Sarah. For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. Then she sighed. I'm glad you're doing better. I think I am. She nodded. You deserve that. I hesitated. How's Olivia? Sarah looked uncomfortable. Honestly? Yes. Not as happy as people think. I didn't know how to respond. Sarah looked away. Sometimes people chase excitement and don't realize what they're giving up. Before I could answer, she excused herself and left. I stood there thinking about her words. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction either. Mostly, I felt distance. My life was finally moving in another direction. Several weeks later, Daniel called me. His voice sounded unusually excited. Get to my office. What happened? Just get here. I arrived 20 minutes later. Daniel was already standing. Sit down. Now I was nervous. What is it? He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. At first, I didn't understand what I was reading. Then my eyes widened. This can't be real. Oh, it's real. I looked up. A national contract? Daniel grinned. A very large national contract. My heart started racing. They chose us. They chose you. I stared at the papers. The numbers looked unreal. The contract was larger than anything I had imagined during my first year. larger than anything I had dreamed possible. This changes everything. Daniel nodded. Yes, it does. I sat there in stunned silence. Months earlier, I had believed my life was over. Now I was looking at a future I had built myself. As I left the office, I called Grace. She answered immediately. Good news or bad news? I laughed. The best news. What happened? We got the contract. There was a brief pause. Then she screamed so loudly I had to move the phone away from my ear. When I finally stopped laughing, I looked up at the sky. For the first time in a very long time, I wasn't focused on what I had lost. I was focused on everything I was becoming. My company continued growing, but success didn't make me reckless. I was happier than before. Stronger, too. Still, I remained careful. I had learned how quickly trust could break. One Tuesday afternoon, my assistant knocked on my office door. There's a woman here asking for you. Did she give a name? Rachel Reed. The surname immediately caught my attention. Send her in. A few moments later, a woman entered. She looked confident but tired. I offered a seat. Have we met before? No. Then why are you here? She studied me carefully. Because I used to be married to Jason Reed. My stomach tightened. What do you want? To tell you something. I leaned back. I'm listening. Rachel folded her hands. Jason isn't who people think he is. I laughed quietly. I already figured that out. No, you figured out part of it. That got my attention. What do you mean? She reached into her purse and placed several documents on my desk. During our marriage, I watched him manipulate people constantly. I looked down at the papers. What am I looking at? Financial records. My eyes narrowed. Why show me these? Because I know Olivia left you for him. The statement felt strange coming from a stranger, Rachel continued. Jason lies when the truth isn't useful. That's a serious accusation. It's also true. I flipped through the pages. There are missing funds. Exactly. And unexplained. Transfers. Exactly. I looked up. Why now? Rachel sighed. Because people keep getting hurt while he keeps getting away with it. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. By the end, several things finally made sense. The expensive gifts, the sudden trips, the lifestyle Olivia seemed to have overnight. Jason hadn't simply been wealthy, he had been using money as a weapon. Before leaving, Rachel stood. Be careful. Of what? People like Jason don't panic until consequences arrive. And you think consequences are coming? She gave a small smile. I know they are. After she left, I sat quietly in my office. The pieces were beginning to fit together. Not all of them, but enough. That evening, my phone rang unexpectedly. The number wasn't saved. I answered anyway. Hello? Ethan, I froze. Olivia, months had passed since our last conversation. What do you want? A long pause followed. I wanted to talk. Why? I think we need closure. I almost laughed. Closure? Please. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. The next afternoon, we sat across from each other at a small cafe. She looked different. Not physically, emotionally, less confident, less certain. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. You look good. Thanks. Your business is doing well. I've been busy, she nodded slowly. I'm glad. Conversation felt awkward, almost unnatural. Then she looked down. I know I hurt you. I remained quiet. I've wanted to say that for a long time. You already did. I know. Her voice sounded softer than I remembered. Not defensive, not dismissive, just tired. For the first time, I heard something unexpected. Regret, not guilt, not embarrassment, regret. She twisted her coffee cup nervously. How's your family? They're fine. And Mason? Still protective? That almost made her smile. Almost. Eventually she asked, Are you happy? The question surprised me. I think so. I always hoped you'd be okay. I looked at her carefully. A year ago, I would have believed every word. Now I wasn't sure what to believe. Still, one thing felt genuine. She wasn't as happy as she pretended. Before leaving, she stood slowly. Thank you for meeting me. Take care of yourself. Olivia, she nodded. You too. As she walked away, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not sadness, distance. The emotional hold she once had over me was fading. A few days later, another unexpected visitor arrived. He introduced himself quickly. Detective Ryan Cooper. My attention sharpened immediately. Can I help you? I'm gathering information related to several business transactions involving Jason Reed. I tried not to react. What kind of transactions? I can't discuss details. Then why speak to me? Because your name appeared during our review. I frowned. My name? Only indirectly. The detective handed me a card. If you remember anything useful, contact me. After he left, I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. Rachel's warning, Olivia's regret. Now a detective. The separate pieces were moving toward each other. A week later, I understood why. I was eating lunch when Grace called. Her voice sounded urgent. Ethan, turn on the news. What happened? Just do it. I grabbed the remote and switched channels. A reporter appeared on the screen. Then I heard the words that changed. Everything. Jason Reed's company is now under official investigation for alleged financial misconduct. I stared at the television. The cracks had finally become impossible to hide.
The investigation changed everything. Every week brought new headlines. Every headline made Jason's situation worse. One morning Mason called me. Did you see the news? I've seen enough news lately. This one's different. I opened an article on my phone. My eyes widened. 3 investors pulled out? All before noon. I leaned back in my chair. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of panic. After ending the call, I tried returning to work. I failed. The story kept spreading. Former employees were speaking publicly. Former business partners were speaking publicly. People who once praised Jason were suddenly distancing themselves. The collapse wasn't immediate. It was gradual. And somehow that made it more dramatic. A few days later, Sarah called unexpectedly. Can we talk? Sure. Her voice sounded exhausted. I'm worried about Olivia. I stayed silent. Things aren't good. What happened? Sarah laughed bitterly. Where should I start? I didn't answer. She continued anyway. Jason keeps promising that everything will be fixed. And nothing gets fixed. I heard disappointment in her voice. Olivia still believes him? Not anymore. That surprised me. What changed? Sarah sighed. The lies became impossible to ignore. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she added quietly, I told her the truth. What truth? That she made a terrible mistake. I looked out my office window. How did she react? She cried. The answer affected me more than I expected. Not because I enjoyed hearing it. Because once upon a time, I would have done anything to prevent her tears. After hanging up, I pushed the thought away and returned to work. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. Olivia. The message was short. Can we talk? I stared at it, then locked my phone. An hour later, another message arrived. Please. I ignored that one too. The next day she called. I let it ring. Then she called again. And again. Finally, I answered. What do you want? A long pause followed. I miss talking to you. The honesty caught me off guard. Why are you calling me? I don't know. That's not true. She sighed. Maybe I just wanted to hear your voice. I closed my eyes briefly. Months earlier those words would have meant everything. Now they mostly made me sad. Olivia. I'm sorry. You already said that. I know. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then she whispered, I didn't understand what I had. The conversation ended shortly afterward. But it wasn't the last one. Over the next several weeks, she continued reaching out. Sometimes through texts, sometimes through calls, sometimes through long messages she eventually deleted. Meanwhile, Jason's situation kept deteriorating. The more pressure he faced, the worse his behavior became. At least according to Sarah. One evening Grace and I met for dinner. She immediately noticed I seemed distracted. What's wrong? I hesitated. Olivia keeps contacting me. Grace nodded. I figured. You figured. You're not hard to read. I laughed softly. That's concerning. A little. I stirred my drink. I don't know how I feel. That's normal. Part of me still remembers who she used to be. Grace studied me carefully. And another part? Another part remembers everything she did. She nodded. Both things can be true. I looked at her. What would you do? Grace smiled. I wouldn't answer that. Why not? Because you already know. Maybe she was right. The truth was uncomfortable. I cared about Olivia. Maybe I always would. But caring about someone wasn't the same as trusting them. And trust was the thing she destroyed. A week later, I received another message. This one was different. I need to see you. I didn't respond. A few hours later, another arrived. Please, Ethan. Again, I ignored it. The next morning, I arrived at my office early. I planned to review reports before a meeting. Instead, my assistant appeared at my door. You have a visitor. I don't remember scheduling one. You didn't. Something in her expression made me uneasy. Who is it? She stepped aside. The moment I looked toward the hallway, my heart stopped. Olivia stood there. She looked nervous, almost frightened. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then my assistant quietly walked away, leaving us alone. I stood slowly. Olivia. Hi. What are you doing here? Her eyes filled with emotion. For a moment she seemed unable to speak. Then she finally took a step forward. I know I don't deserve this conversation. I remained silent. I know I hurt you. Still silent. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then another. When she finally spoke again, her voice barely rose above a whisper. Can we start over? I stared at Olivia across my office. Months ago, seeing tears in her eyes would have shattered me. Now it left me conflicted. Not cold, not cruel, just uncertain. Can we start over? She asked again. I slowly sat down. That's not a simple question. I know. Then why ask it? Because I had spent years loving her. Part of me already knew the answer. She wasn't here for closure. She was here because everything had fallen apart. Olivia lowered her eyes. I owe you the truth. I folded my arms. Then tell me. For a few moments she said nothing. Then the words finally came. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I remained silent. I thought I was choosing something better. Jason. She nodded. Yes. I looked at her carefully. For the first time since she walked into my office, she wasn't defending herself. She wasn't making excuses. She wasn't rewriting history. She looked exhausted. I thought money would solve everything. Her voice shook. I thought excitement meant happiness. I listened quietly. I kept convincing myself I made the right choice. What changed? A sad laugh escaped her. Reality. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then she continued. Jason lied about so many things. I thought about Rachel, the investigation, the headlines, the collapsing company. What kind of things? Business deals. She swallowed hard. Money. I wasn't surprised. She noticed immediately. You already knew. I knew enough. Olivia looked away. When people started investigating him, everything changed. How? He became angry all the time. I said nothing. He blamed everyone else. Another pause. Then I realized something. What? She looked directly at me. I never really knew him. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. For years I thought I knew Olivia. I had been wrong too. She wiped her eyes. I lost friends. I remembered what Sarah had told me. I lost trust. That part one understood. I lost myself. That part one understood even more. The office became quiet. Then she whispered something unexpected. I never stopped thinking about you. My chest tightened. Not because I believed it completely, because part of me wanted to. Olivia, it's true. You left me. I know. You chose him. I know. You lied to me for almost a year. A tear rolled down her cheek. I know. Every answer sounded sincere. That made this harder. If she had been manipulative, I could have dismissed everything. If she had been arrogant, I could have walked away easily. Instead, she looked broken. And broken people are difficult to hate. I used to imagine this moment, I admitted. Her eyes widened. What moment? You coming back. Hope appeared briefly in her expression. Then I continued. For months after you left, I imagined you realizing your mistake. The hope disappeared. I imagined you knocking on my door. I looked away. I imagined getting the chance to hear everything you're saying now. She sat quietly. Then what happened? I changed. The answer hurt both of us. I could see it. You don't love me anymore? The question felt complicated. I don't know. That was the truth. Because love wasn't always something that vanished. Sometimes it transformed into something else. Something quieter. Something sadder. But I know I can't forget what happened. She lowered her head. I don't expect you to. The conversation ended shortly afterward. When Olivia finally left, my office felt strangely heavy. I stayed there long after she was gone, thinking, remembering, questioning. Years ago, I would have accepted her instantly. No hesitation, no conditions, no pride, just love. Now everything was different. That evening I called Grace. She answered immediately. How did it go? Complicated. That's never a good sign. I laughed softly. No. We met at a small park near downtown. As we walked, I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded. You're struggling. Very. Because part of you still cares. Yes. Grace looked ahead. That doesn't mean you owe her another chance. I knew that. Yet hearing someone else say it mattered. What if I'm being unfair? Are you? I don't know. Grace stopped walking. Then she looked directly at me. Forgiveness and reconciliation aren't the same thing. The sentence hit me harder than I expected. Because she was right. I could forgive Olivia. That didn't automatically mean rebuilding a relationship. For several minutes we walked in silence. Eventually Grace smiled. Whatever decision you make sure it's about your future, not my past. Exactly. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment. Olivia's words replayed in my head. The regret, the tears, the honesty. For the first time, she seemed genuinely remorseful. That should have made the decision easier. Instead, it made everything harder. My phone buzzed. A message from Olivia. I stared at it for several seconds before opening it. There was only one sentence. A simple question. A devastating question. If I had chosen you back then, would we still be together today? I stared at Olivia's message for nearly an hour. If I had chosen you back then, would we still be together today? The question wasn't simple. A year earlier, I would have answered immediately. Now I needed the truth. The next day I called her. She answered on the first ring. Ethan, we need to talk. Okay. Her voice sounded hopeful. That worried me. We met that evening at a quiet park. The same park where we once planned our future. The irony wasn't lost on me. For a few moments neither of us spoke. Then Olivia broke the silence. Did you think about my question? Yes. She waited. So? I took a slow breath. If you had chosen me back then, we probably would still be together. Hope immediately appeared in her eyes. Then I continued. But that's not the real problem. The hope faded. What do you mean? I looked directly at her. The problem isn't that you chose someone else. Confusion crossed her face. Then what is it? The problem is that you never truly chose me. The words hung between us. Olivia looked stunned. I did choose you. No. Yes, I did. I shook my head. You stayed with me. Her expression changed. There is a difference. She looked away. I continued quietly. When things were stable, you stayed. Silence. When things were comfortable, you stayed. More silence. But the moment someone exciting appeared, you left. A tear formed in her eye. That's not fair. Isn't it? She couldn't answer. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was finally being honest. For years, I confused loyalty with love. Now I understood the difference. You loved what I gave you. The tears started falling. That's not true. I gave you support. Silence. I gave you trust. More silence. I gave you commitment. She lowered her head. But when it came time to choose who you wanted beside you, you picked someone else. The truth hurt both of us. I could see it. Finally she whispered, I was stupid. Yes. I was selfish. Yes. She wiped her face. I hate myself for it. That statement made me uncomfortable. I shook my head. Don't do that. She looked surprised. What? Hating yourself won't change anything. Then what will? I thought about the question. Learning from it. Neither of us spoke for a while. Eventually she asked the question I knew was coming. Can you forgive me? I smiled sadly. I already do. Her eyes widened. You do? Yes. Relief appeared on her face. For a brief moment. Then I added, but forgiveness isn't the same as a second chance. The relief disappeared instantly. Ethan. I'm serious. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Please. Hearing the desperation in her voice hurt more than I expected. Not because I was tempted. Because I remembered when I was the desperate one. When I begged for explanations. When I wanted her to choose me. Now our positions had reversed. And somehow that wasn't satisfying. It was tragic. I can't go back. Why not? You know why. I've changed. Maybe. She took a step closer. I have. I believe you. Hope returned briefly. Then I finished. But that doesn't mean we belong together. The tears became uncontrollable. For the first time, Olivia stopped arguing. Stopped negotiating. Stopped searching for answers. Because she finally understood. There wasn't going to be another chance. The silence between us felt heavy. Eventually she whispered, I'm sorry. I know. For everything. I know. Then she walked away. This time neither of us stopped her. A few days later I visited my mother. She noticed something immediately. You look lighter. I smiled. I think I am. We sat together in her kitchen. Then she asked, did you make peace with the past? I thought about Olivia, about the betrayal, about the heartbreak, and about the man I used to be. Yes, my mother smiled. Good. That evening Mason called. So what? Did she ask for another chance? I laughed. Of course she did. And I said no. There was a brief pause. Then Mason laughed. I never thought I'd hear that. Neither did I. What changed? I looked out the window. My self-respect. The answer came naturally, because it was true. Later that week I met Grace for coffee. She smiled the moment she saw me. It's over, isn't it? Yeah. How do you feel? I considered the question carefully. Sad. She nodded. But also proud. That made her smile. Those can exist together. I looked at her. You know, for a long time I thought moving on meant forgetting. And now I think it means remembering without wanting to go back. Grace raised her coffee cup. That's growth. I laughed. Maybe. Around the same time, the investigation into Jason continued expanding. New reports appeared almost weekly. Financial misconduct, fraud allegations, former employees speaking publicly. The consequences were finally catching up with him. But strangely, I didn't care much anymore. Because the biggest victory wasn't his downfall. The biggest victory was realizing I no longer needed it. For years I was afraid of losing Olivia. Now I understood something important. I never truly lost her, because she was never mine in the first place. And once I accepted that truth, I finally became free. Several months passed. For the first time in years, my life felt calm. Not perfect, not magical, just peaceful. And after everything that happened, peace felt like a miracle. One morning Mason called me. "Have you heard the latest news?" I laughed. "About Jason? Who else?" I leaned back in my office chair. "What happened now?" "It's over." "What do you mean?" "The investigation is finished." I already knew what that meant. Still, I asked, "How bad is it?" "Bad enough." I shook my head slowly. Months ago, I would have celebrated. Now I simply listened. Several charges. Damn. His company is finished. I looked out the window. And him. Let's just say life caught up with him. After the call ended, I sat quietly. No satisfaction. No revenge. No victory dance. Just acceptance. Jason made his choices. Now he was living with them. That was enough. Later that week, I ran into Sarah. She smiled sadly when she saw me. "How are you?" "I'm doing well." "You look well." I appreciated that. "How's Olivia?" Sarah looked toward the ground. "She moved away." The answer didn't surprise me. "Where?" "Another state." I nodded. "She wanted a fresh start." Part of me understood. "How is she?" Sarah thought carefully. "Trying." That single word said everything. "Tell her I wish her well." Sarah smiled. "I will." As we said goodbye, I realized something. I genuinely meant it. There was no anger left. No bitterness. Only distance and understanding. That night, I met Grace for dinner. What started as friendship had slowly become something deeper. Not through grand gestures. Not through dramatic confessions. Through honesty. Through trust. Through consistency. The things I once overlooked. Grace smiled as she sat down. "You seem happy." "I am." "That's a nice change." I laughed. "It really is." The waiter took our order and left. Then Grace studied me. "What are you thinking about?" "The past." Her eyebrow rose. "That's usually dangerous." "Not tonight." She smiled. "Good." I looked at her for a moment. "You know something?" "What?" "If you had met me 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't have liked me." She laughed. "Why not?" "Because I had no identity outside my relationship." Grace nodded. "That's fair. I built my entire world around one person. And now I have a life that belongs to me." Her smile softened. "You worked hard for that." Maybe I had. Or maybe heartbreak forced me to. Either way, I was grateful. A few weeks later, my company reached another milestone. The team gathered in the conference room. Daniel stood beside me. "You remember your first meeting?" I laughed. "Barely." "You were terrified." "I still am sometimes." Daniel shook his head. "No." "What?" "Now you're responsible." The difference mattered. Fear made me hesitate. Responsibility made me act. As everyone celebrated, I found myself remembering the broken man sitting alone with an engagement ring. That version of me felt distant now. Not forgotten, just healed. A few days later, I drove to a familiar place. The small overlook outside town. Years earlier, Olivia and I sat there talking about our future. Marriage, children, dreams. Back then I thought that place belonged to our story. Now I understood it belonged to mine. I sat on the same bench and looked across the horizon. The memories returned naturally. The laughter, the promises, the plans. Surprisingly, none of it hurt. Instead, I felt grateful. Not for the betrayal. Not for the pain. For the lessons. Because losing Olivia forced me to confront truths I spent years avoiding. I had confused devotion with self-sacrifice. I had confused attachment with love. Most importantly, I had confused being chosen temporarily with being chosen completely. My phone buzzed. It was Grace. "Where are you?" "At the Overlook." "The old one?" "Yeah." A brief pause followed. "How do you feel?" I looked at the fading sunlight. "Good. Just good." I smiled. "Maybe better than good." She laughed softly. "I'll take that." Before ending the call, she asked one final question. "Any regrets?" I thought about it carefully. Then I answered honestly. "No." Because regrets would mean wishing my life had unfolded differently. And despite everything I suffered, I liked the person I had become. That evening I met Grace at a park near downtown. We walked slowly along a quiet path. Neither of us felt the need to rush. That was another difference. Real connections didn't need constant proving. Eventually she slipped her hand into mine. The gesture was simple, yet it meant more than countless dramatic moments from my past. Because it was real. Because it was mutual. Because neither of us was chasing an illusion. As we continued walking, I thought about the fear that once controlled me. For years I was terrified of losing Olivia. I built entire versions of my future around that fear. I believed losing her would destroy me. I was wrong. The truth was much simpler. Real love cannot be held together by fear. Real love cannot survive on one person's devotion. Real love requires two people choosing each other completely. That was the lesson I spent years learning. I stopped walking and looked ahead. The future no longer felt uncertain. It felt open, full of possibilities, full of life. As I took another step forward, I finally understood something that once seemed impossible. Olivia was never mine to begin with, and now that I truly understood that losing her no longer hurt, for the first time in a very long time I wasn't looking backward. I was walking toward the life waiting for me.